sorry I can't pay you more, but it's got this this large bite out of it.
That's why I'm selling it. It's got a large bite out of it.
Yeah, I could have done this.
I told you what.
Oh yeah, strange invaders.
Thanks for believing me. I really did call the government. Yeah. They're sending someone to take care of the whole thing.
Jeez, Earl, you really are crazy. I mean, who in the hell would the government send?
We got one!
Okay, so he doesn't call them. But man, imagine how this movie would turn out if that was the case. Lo and behold, ladies and gents, my first animated movie review. At first glance, Iron Giant looks like an everyday average animated Disney flick, when in reality, it is something completely different. Minus the whole being animated thing. For one, this movie is owned by Warner Brothers, not Disney. 2, it doesn't involve princesses wanting more of something, curses that are being put onto other characters, a revenge plot, or really anything Disney does over and over. And 3, this film takes risks. And you know what? It's because of these risks that makes it more enjoyable. Which is also something Disney doesn't do very often when it comes to their animated films. At least from what I've seen. I mean, really, it's just really one of those cases where when you watch it as a kid, you've likely missed a few jokes and such that adults would have gotten, but then as you yourself got older, you start seeing the hidden adult humor a little better. While I doubt that this movie is overlooked by a huge audience like Lemony Snicket's, I don't seem to see or hear anybody talk about it. So with that in mind, did Brad Bird truly make a good risky animated film? Or did it ironically make too many risks to, in turn, make itself a risk to watch? Alrighty then, we begin this adventure with a captain lost at sea, but what's not all lost is his hope, because he found a lighthouse.
I see it!
Well, that is definitely no lighthouse.
It's a space station!
Shut up, Belzer! This is an Iron Giant video. You had your moments to shine. No. Anyway, we meet our main character named Hogarth Hughes, who rushes off to a diner his mom works at to ask if he can keep a squirrel as a pet. The catch is, she doesn't know it's a squirrel. Also, fun fact, that's Jennifer Aniston voicing Hogarth's mom. I never knew that for the longest time. Hogarth's squirrel escapes the box he was in and goes to a booth, which is being sat on by a character named Dean. He's voiced by Harry Connick Jr., who most of you would remember as Will Smith's pilot friend Jimmy from Independence Day. Hogarth asks if he can help look for said squirrel, but it's okay. Dean found him.
Found your pet.
Where?
It's on my leg, man. Squirrels in my pants, Hogarth. I'm sorry, kid. I'd like to apologize to everyone in advance for this.
As you would probably imagine, he is not exactly allowed to stay there for the time being, so he goes home by himself. Here, he does what I'd imagine most kids at that age did when their parents weren't home, especially at night. Sugar snacks for dinner. Oh my god, they have Twinkies. You know, I wasn't exactly planning on doing this twice in one review, but I will play this clip.
That's a big Twinkie.
And there you go. Sugar snacks for dinner, and staying up late to watch scary movies. Unfortunately for Hogarth, the antenna seems to be getting some bad interference, which causes Garth to go up on the roof to see what's wrong with it. Well, there's your problem. Your antenna's kinda gone. He notices a large path of knocked down trees and fences that lead into an electric plant thingy McNugger. While Hogarth is just amazed at this sight of electricity, he kinda, sorta, gets some unexpected company. The giant tries eating the electric plant, or at least the metal that's on the electric plant, but unfortunately the electric plant itself says, "I don't like you," and just electrifies the crap out of the giant. But luckily, Hogarth has a soft spot for giant iron robots. The next day, Hogarth is in school, and for some reason they're watching a video about nuclear bomb protection. Okay, I gotta admit, that's kind of creative. I mean, you got your fire drills, your tornado drills, and your code red drills, but I've never been in, nor have I ever heard of, a atomic bomb drill. The giant appears to have eaten parts of metal objects all over the town, and that guy we saw controlling the ship in the beginning called the government to take a look at the situation. That would be a guy known as Kent Mansley, who is actually voiced by that golf bully in Happy Gilmore. But anyway, he takes a look at what happened.
Sometimes the line will snap if the weather's bad, sure.
But for a whole tower to get twisted up like that, whoa, it's got me beat.
It's almost like it was bitten off by some enormous beast.
Enormous beast. Yeah, what do you think? Escaped gorilla?
Of course that means Mansley won't believe him. That is until he gets back to his car to find a little surprise.
Probably the homecoming queen. Oh my god!
Now he's about to take some serious action into his own hands.
What are we looking at here, Mr. Manley?
Something big, Marv. Something big.
But who cares about that? Hogarth is interested to see the giant again. So he gets a big slab of metal, a camera, and sets up a location to bait him out, so Hogarth can get a picture of said giant. But the giant isn't actually harmful, and we get a fun little scene where the giant copies everything that Hogarth does.
Can you do that? Blah, blah, blah. Rock. Tree. That's right! Crazy. You know, like, No, don't do that! That's the kind of stuff that makes them shoot at you.
Hey, fun fact about who voices the giant. That's Vin Diesel. Most of you probably remember from the Fast and Furious franchise, but you really probably wouldn't be able to tell just by hearing the giant talk. Okay, so in case you missed it, this oddball selection of voice actors include Jennifer Aniston, Jimmy from Independence Day, Golf Bully from Happy Gilmore, and Vin Diesel from the Fast and the Furious franchise. What's next? You're gonna call up Christopher Walken to voice the general of the military? But man, wouldn't that be something? You know, Mansley, we got a giant to deal with.
This guy
I think you can
is
fetch us a
unfucking
couple
believable.
of candy bars. And maybe some more cowbells. And no, he doesn't voice the general of the military in this movie. But let's get back on track. God, not that kind of track. Never mind. Okay, so the giant has a dent in his head. That is important for later. Where did the giant come from? We don't know. He doesn't even know. This robot has amnesia. Okay, so yeah, because train tracks have metal rails, the giant wanted to eat the train tracks. And of course, the train has to be arriving at this specific moment in time.
Good, good. Oh, good, good. Now the other. Okay, good enough. Let's go. The train is coming.
But that's okay. Giant manages to put the train tracks back together, but unfortunately... You know, I guess you could say that the giant had a local motivation for causing this train wreck. Get it? Locomotive. Local motivation.
You're alive.
Locomotive is part of a train. Giant is actually able to reassemble himself when he gets broken apart, which seems cool until Hogarth tries having dinner with his mom.
Oh my god.
Wait! Before I continue much further, remember how I told you this film took risks? Well, this scene is one of them because while Hogarth knows that the giant's hand is in the house, his mom asks him to say a prayer before they eat.
Oh my god. Thank you for the food that Mom has put in front of us. And stop! The devil from doing bad things. And, get out of here! Satan.
Well, I think it's a risk. Hogarth tries sneaking the hand out of the house, but Mansley shows up at the door, and here's a few more risks that the movie made.
Who's there, honey?
Oh, hello there. Here. Pretend you're a gangster.
Mansley is here to call the general to try to explain what happened, but as you'd probably imagine, he doesn't believe him. He leaves the house, but then gets an epiphany when he looks at the BB gun.
Hogarth? Embarrassing name. Might as well call him Zeppo or something. What kind of a sick person would name a kid Hogarth? Hogarth Hughes!
He returns to the house, and Hogarth still has to try to get the hand out. And we get one of those classic scenes where someone makes noises in the bathroom, and the characters outside the bathroom think they are doing something different.
Are you all right?
I'm fine.
You know, this sort of thing is why it's so important to really chew your food.
Kent leaves, though this is obviously not the last time we'll see him. Hogarth brings Vin Dieselbot some comic books, one of them being Superman and another one being a supervillain named Atomo. Giant gets hungry. I didn't know robots could get hungry, but hey, he's an alien technically. So Hogarth takes Giant to a scrapyard, and guess who it happens to belong to?
All right, who's out there?
Dean takes the metal objects from the scrapyard and makes art out of them. After a hilarious bit where Hogarth tells a life story while hyped up on espresso.
So she moved me up a grade because I wasn't fitting in, so now I'm even more not fitting in. I was getting good grades, you know, like always. So my mom says, you need stimulation. And I go, no, I'm stimulated enough right now.
Dean delivers advice to him.
Who cares what these creeps think, you know? They don't decide who you are, you do. You are who you choose to be.
He hears some noises coming from the yard, and he finally sees the giant for himself.
It's okay.
My God.
He isn't gonna...
Run, kid, run!
It's okay. It's okay. He isn't gonna hurt me. Squash him. No, do not squash him. His name is Dean. We like Dean.
Hogarth says he needs food and shelter, implying that he wants Dean to take care of him while Hogarth isn't around. But it's okay. Dean understands and takes it well. Okay, maybe not right away, but after 37 minutes of pestering, Dean finally lets Giant stay for the night. Hogarth gets home, but only to find unwanted company. At the scrapyard, Giant eats Dean's art, but after fixing one of his scrap arts, Dean starts to get a liking for Giant. So really, for a good chunk of the movie now, it's Mansley trying to get answers from both Hogarth and the citizens of Rockwell.
You think this middleman is fun, but who built it? The Russians, the Chinese, Martians, Canadians? I don't care! All I know is we didn't build it, and that's reason enough to assume the worst and blow it to kingdom come.
And these three just hanging out.
Banzai!
Hey,
Yeah?
you're right in the middle of the road.
Yeah?
All right.
I think that's enough fun for one day.
While walking through the woods on a nice looking day, they spot a deer that unfortunately gets shot by a couple of hunters, and the giant reacts a little strange to the shotgun.
Hey, what's wrong?
Mansley finds out for certain that Hogarth knows about the giant and threatens him to tell where the giant is, or Mansley will separate him from his mom. Hogarth doesn't have much choice in the matter and tells him where the giant is. Mansley calls up the military to have them meet up at the house and head over to the scrapyard after they picked him up, but luckily Hogarth managed to tell Dean just in time and sets up a disguise for the giant.
Here he is. Anyway, I haven't sold him yet, so if you really want him, and if, you know, throw in a competitive bid.
Sir, listen. Step outside, Mansley.
Yes.
The general, as you'd probably imagine, gets kinda sorta pissed at Mansley and tells him to clear his office when they get back to Washington. And the military leave the place. With them gone, Hogarth decides to play hero versus villain with Giant. And the two comic book characters brought up before come back here.
Tomo!
No, Tomo.
All seems to be fair child's play until Hogarth pretends to shoot a gun at Giant.
And take this! Stupid gun. Take this!
It turns out that the giant is actually a defensive weapon that will transform some of his body parts into guns that even we haven't created yet, and try to terminate whatever was trying to shoot him. Dean doesn't realize this at first and causes the giant to run off depressed. After a couple of kids are about to fall off this balcony, Giant runs as fast as he can to save them. Doing this finally reveals himself to the town, but unfortunately the military as well.
Sweet mother of God.
So, even though the giant is just standing still, not doing anything, the military still fires at him. But Dean tries to tell Mansley to tell the general that the giant is actually harmless unless you fire at him. Really, Dean? You're just gonna trust Mansley, of all people, to tell the general the truth? Why can't you just tell the general? It's not a bad plan, as you'll see in a bit. It's not like the general's misunderstanding.
He says the monster's killed a kid. Sir, we must stop it at all costs.
But in the heat of the chase, we and the giant discover something new about him.
You can fly? You can fly!
Yes! The giant is now the true Man of Steel! Except, giant's made of iron, so... wouldn't that make him the true Iron Man? I guess you couldn't exactly be called both since Iron Man's Marvel and Superman's DC. So you're practically calling the Iron Man Superman. Isn't that, like, illegal in the comic book world? I don't know. But back to more important things. Giant gets shot down, and after the landing, the giant thinks the worst.
It's still alive! Shoot at it!
The dent in his head gets undented, and this, I guess, causes him to remember that he can transform into an ultimate gun.
Must go faster.
But luckily this is a kid's movie, so the main character, who happens to be a kid, won't die. But more intense things are happening right now. Because Mansley's freaking out and the military really doesn't know what to do, and their weapons don't really do anything to the giant, Mansley comes down to one more possibility. A missile. A nuclear missile.
The bomb. The Nautilus has first strike capability and is not far offshore.
You scare me, Mansley. You want us to bomb ourselves in order to kill it?
General, the giant seems to follow whatever attacks it. We can lure it away from the town, then destroy it.
Radio the Nautilus. Tell him to target the robot and await my command.
Now it's up to Hogarth to try to talk some sense into the giant. He does this by bringing up a rather familiar sounding phrase.
Guns kill. And you don't have to be a gun. You are what you choose to be. You choose. Choose.
Giant understands Hogarth, and he decides to go ungun mode.
What are you saying? He's friendly?
Yes.
Okay, seriously, Dean. Now you decide to talk to the general himself? Whatever! I don't even care. That's all fine and good, but oh yeah, Mansley's still in this movie.
Launch the missile now! That missile is targeted to the giant's current position! Where's the giant, Mansley?
Well, we can duck and cover. There's a fallout shelter right there.
There's no way to survive this, you idiot!
You mean we're all going to
die, Mansley, for our country.
Oh no. It's a missile. When it comes down, everyone will die.
You know, I hate to break the mood, but isn't the way to survive a nuclear missile explosion to just hide under a desk? Because, I mean, if that video was lying, that's false advertising, and they can sue that company. But Giant himself wants to be the true hero.
You stay. I go. No following. Let's go home.
Now the giant's labeled as a hero, and Dean makes a statue of him holding Hogarth as a memorial statue. Also, it seems that him and Hogarth's mom have gotten together.
Oh, hey, Hogarth. The general sent this to you.
What is it?
He said it was the only part recovered. He thought you should have it.
I miss him.
But just when you thought all hope was lost...
See you later.
And I'm not kidding here, this is where the movie ends. Oh my god! That is one of the best ways you can end a movie ever! You know how there's no Iron Giant 2? That's because there doesn't need to be an Iron Giant 2. This ending is superb. And why? Because we can use our own imaginations as to what happens next. We can make the next chapter. We don't need a sequel that would possibly ruin the movie to tell it for us. But every review has to end somewhere, so let's head on over to the pros and cons section. Hogarth. Usually, when a kid has to be the main character, they either had to be annoying or a misbehaved kid in the beginning and then learn their lesson near the end of the movie. Not the same thing with Hogarth. He's not annoying by any means, and sure, he does a few things that he knows he shouldn't do, but to be fair, he's still a kid. Many kids do these kinds of things at that age. It's nothing to be shunned for. He's just relating to other kids of that age in real life. And on top of that, he has some legitimate funny moments.
Crazy, you know, like, No, don't do that. That's the kind of stuff that makes them shoot at you.
It's also kind of funny how in the beginning he wanted a squirrel as a pet, but his mom was worried he wouldn't be able to control it. But by the end, Hogarth manages to both control and befriend a giant space robot. I think this is also showing us that Hogarth is capable of being an adult, and even goes into parent mode a few times.
If you're gonna stay here, you gotta keep better track of yourself.
I think you get the idea. He is one of, if not the best examples on how to make a kid the main character. Of course I gotta include the title character himself. When he first appears, he is just a robot, looking for metal to eat. But after Hogarth saves him from the electricity, Giant wants to actually be friends with Hogarth. It's also kind of fascinating that he can actually develop emotions. It's not like, say, RoboCop, where he still has a human brain and heart in him to make him human-like and still kind of feel emotions. In this movie, it seems like the Giant is actually slowly becoming human while still retaining his robot form, if that makes any sense. Especially when he's around Hogarth. I mentioned before that Hogarth kind of sort of goes into parent mode a few times. And one of the moments where it really shows that is when he's teaching the Giant how to actually speak and pronounce words.
Rock, tree. That's right!
Much like how a parent would teach their infant. And when I said he actually starts developing emotions as the movie progresses, that's all true. He feels happiness, depression, anger, and even vengeful. Call him Superman, Iron Man, whatever you want, man. I am just gonna call him one of the best robots in any movie. The supporting cast. The mom is nice, not overly protective, and adds to the humor with her facial expressions.
You know, this sort of thing is why it's so important to really chew your food.
Oh my God! Thank you for the...
I also like how she actually trusts Hogarth around this giant robot that she's never even seen before. So there's no doubt about it, Hogarth's mom is one really awesome mom. I also really like Dean. He kind of sort of reminds me of a skinnier version of Hagrid from Harry Potter. Dean is a guy who seems like you could visit anytime and strike up almost any kind of conversation with him. And also like him, Dean never gets mad, unless of course the giant is trying to kill Hogarth, but he's also willing to help Hogarth as much as he can. Even when sort of out of nowhere, Hogarth just asks Dean to babysit his robot. I also kind of like his low-voiced, snarky kind of attitude.
I could have done this.
I told you what.
Oh, yeah. Strange invaders.
If Dean existed in real life, I'd find him and be friends with him almost immediately. And yes, I have to put Mansley on here. Why? Because, dang it, he is the kind of character you love to hate. But hey, why did you list Walter Peck as a con in Ghostbusters if he is also a character you love to hate? That's because Mansley is entertaining. He can make you laugh, whether it's something he says or does on his own.
You think this middleman is fun, but who built it? The Russians, the Chinese, Martians, Canadians? I don't care!
Or if it was something that another character caused to make him do something that was funny.
This time was probably the homecoming queen. Oh my God!
The reason why I put Peck as a con in Ghostbusters is because not one line of dialogue he says makes you laugh. I mean, both of these movies are comedies. Peck sucks the comedy out of every scene he's in. Mansley is funny. He adds to the comedy. But just another thing that I like about Mansley, and really it's just about the movie as a whole, there really is no villain. I mean, Mansley is the closest thing to one, but he's not. He's just a jerk who's blinded by his own rage because no one believes him about the giant. True, he caused the bomb to launch and almost annihilated the entire town of Rockwell, but again, blind fury. Also, is it only a coincidence that often brought up is Superman in this movie, and Superman's actual identity is Clark Kent, and Mansley's first name is Kent? Is that symbolism, or am I just thinking too deeply into this? The story is really great as well, taking a relatively new approach on a kid who discovers and relates to a creature or being not of this world and or not human. And then there's the risks that the movie makes. I'll be a bit more clear on the whole risk thing. For being an animated kids film, it actually has a bit more mature content and jokes that kids most likely never got until they got older. For example, even though it's relatively tame, the characters in the movie sometimes say words that kids shouldn't typically say.
I mean, who in the hell would the government send?
Oh my God.
The fact that Hogarth is trying to say a prayer and saying things like,
Then stop! The devil! Get out of here! Satan?
this can make some audiences feel uncomfortable. For me, however, when I got older and actually paid attention to what Hogarth was saying in this scene, it was hilarious! Even the idea of a nuclear war can be a risky move. Some may think the war scene was a little phoned in and a bit rushed, but I think it's fine. I mean, for crying out loud. It's a robot that transforms into guns! How could you not have even a small scene representing a war? There's a few other risks that the movie take, so with that, I really do appreciate the risks that it took to make it more enjoyable than it would have had these things not been in the movie to begin with. The moral of you are who you choose to be is really good as well. It's so simple, yet means so much. Meaning, nobody can control who you really are. You choose who you really are. I felt like that was a good message. The comedy is spot on and never gets old. The sort of heartfelt moments that happen near the end of the movie work too. Because, well, the movie is primarily a comedy, you gotta have those sentimental moments. That, like, I don't know, touch your emotions or something. I don't know. But that's all the stuff in the movie that really makes the movie work. Now let's head on over to the con section and see what didn't work. Now, this is probably one of the most difficult movies to find cons in. But let's see. I already listed the main character Hogarth, the title character being the Giant, the supporting cast being Dean the Mom and Mansley, the story and the risks in the pros section. So what other things do you need to make a movie? How about the soundtrack? It may not be in the pros section, but it's not a bad soundtrack. The only thing is, there just really isn't a point where the music really stands out. It's not like, say, the Jurassic Park or Back to the Future theme where they have that epic sense of adventure and climax. But the soundtrack for Iron Giant is still good. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's just a 10-minute continuous theme. They never really end. They just kind of fade into one another. Some people might say the prayer scene can be offensive depending on how religious they are, but that doesn't really affect the entire audience. It would just be one specific demographic that will not like this part. But the scene is so short that hating the movie for that one reason would really just be a nitpick. And a con isn't exactly a nitpick. It is literally something that does not make a movie, a video game, or anything work. Makes it terrible. There are the extras, those characters that appear once or twice to add support, usually to the supporting cast, but they're not bad either, and some of them are memorable, like the guy who was steering the boat in the beginning, the rest of the military, the other citizens. They don't sound out of place or anything, they sound fairly natural. So really, what do you get when you have a movie where the main characters, the supporting cast, the extras, the music, the story, the morals, the comedy, and the drama don't have flaws in them at all? I guess that means that the Iron Giant deserves, what's that? What's happening? Oh my god, what's going on?